Hey everyone, welcome back to Spooky Sleepy Stories. Tonight I have 7 terrifying true horror stories to help you settle in, relax, and drift off with the sound of rain in the background. So turn the lights down, get comfortable, and let yourself sink into the dark. And if you enjoy stories like this, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and it lets me keep bringing you more spooky stories to fall asleep to. Now, let's begin. The first story is called The Man at the Tree Line. I grew up in a small town in Oregon, surrounded by thick forest on almost every side. At night, the trees looked like a wall, just black shapes pressed together, swaying in the wind. My bedroom window faced the backyard, and beyond that was a thin stretch of grass that led straight into the woods. When I was about 16, I started waking up at the same time every night, 2:17 in the morning. At first, I thought it was just stress, school, sports, regular teenage stuff. But then I started hearing something outside. Not footsteps exactly, more like someone slowly dragging their feet through wet grass. The first night I heard it, I sat up and listened. The rain was coming down softly, tapping on the window, and underneath it I heard this slow, uneven sound. Scrape, pause, scrape, pause. I told myself it was probably a deer, but then I heard a whisper. It was quiet, but close enough that I could understand it. "Come here." I froze. I didn't move for maybe 10 seconds. Then it came again. "Come here." It sounded like my mom. That was the worst part. It sounded exactly like her. Same voice, same gentle tone, like she was calling me from downstairs. But her room was across the hall, and I knew she was asleep. I slowly got out of bed and moved toward the window. I didn't turn on the light. I just pulled the curtain back a little. At first, I saw nothing but rain and darkness. Then lightning flashed, and I saw him. A man was standing at the edge of the trees. He was tall, too tall. His head nearly reached the lowest branches. He was facing my window, not moving, not waving, just standing there. I dropped the curtain and backed away. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I told my mom, but I left out the part about the voice sounding like her. I just said I saw someone in the backyard. She called my dad, and he went out to check. There were footprints in the mud, barefoot footprints. They started at the tree line and came halfway across the yard. Then they stopped. No tracks leading away, just stopped. My dad said maybe someone walked backward into the woods to scare us, but he didn't sound convinced. For the next week, I slept with my curtains shut. Then one night I woke up again, 2:17. I remember staring at the clock and feeling my stomach drop. The rain was heavier that night. I heard the scraping again. This time it was closer. Scrape, pause, scrape, pause. Then the whisper came. "Open the window." It still sounded like my mom. I pulled the blanket over my head like a little kid and tried not to breathe. Then something tapped on the glass. One tap, then another, then 3 slow taps. I didn't look. I couldn't. The tapping stopped. Then I heard something I will never forget. My mom's voice, right outside my bedroom window, whispered, "I can see you hiding." I screamed. My parents ran in. My dad threw the curtains open. There was no one there, but on the outside of the window, written in the fogged glass, were 4 words. "Come out next time." We moved a month later. My parents said it was because my dad got a better job, but I know that wasn't the real reason, because 2 nights before we left, I saw my dad standing in the kitchen, staring out the back door. He was holding a baseball bat, and when I asked him what was wrong, he didn't answer at first. He just said, "It was using your voice tonight." The next story happened in a house where the family thought the worst thing was the storm outside. They were wrong. This one is called The Knock Under the Bed. When I was in college, I rented a basement room from an older couple who lived near campus. They were nice, quiet people, and the rent was cheap. The room was small, but I didn't care. I had a bed, a desk, a closet, and a little window near the ceiling that looked out at the driveway. The only thing I didn't like was the sound the house made at night. Old pipes, creaking floors, the furnace clicking on and off. Normal stuff. At least that's what I thought. One night, I was studying late for an exam. It was around midnight, and the couple upstairs had already gone to bed. I was sitting at my desk when I heard a knock. 3 soft taps. Knock, knock, knock. I looked at the door. Nothing. I thought maybe it came from upstairs, so I went back to studying. A few minutes later, I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. This time it sounded closer, like it came from inside my room. I turned around and looked toward the closet. The door was closed. I stared at it for a long time. Nothing happened. Then I heard the knock again. But it wasn't from the closet. It came from under my bed. I sat completely still. My bed was only a few feet behind me. I didn't want to turn around. I told myself maybe it was the pipes in the wall. Then I heard it again. Knock, 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 right under the mattress. I grabbed my phone and texted my roommate from school. "Are you awake?" He replied almost immediately. "Yeah, what's up?" I typed. "Something just knocked under my bed." He thought I was joking. Then it happened again, this time louder. Knock, knock, knock. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. The knocking stopped. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. It said, "Don't look." I stared at the message, confused. Then another one came through. "Please don't look." I backed toward the door. The room suddenly felt freezing. I opened the door and ran upstairs. The older couple was awake now because they heard me. I told them something was in my room. The husband grabbed a flashlight and went downstairs with me. He checked the closet. Nothing. He checked the window. Locked. Then he got down on his knees and looked under the bed. He laughed a little and said, "Nothing under here." I felt stupid, but I knew what I heard. That night, I slept on their couch upstairs. The next day, I moved the bed to clean underneath it, just to prove to myself there was nothing there. There was a piece of paper taped to the underside of the bed frame. It looked old, folded once. I pulled it off and opened it. It said, "If it knocks, leave the room." I went upstairs and showed the couple. The wife went pale. She said that paper had been there before. Years earlier, their daughter used to sleep in that basement room. She kept saying something knocked under her bed at night. They didn't believe her. Then one morning she was gone. No broken window, no open door, no sign of forced entry. Just gone. They moved her bed out after that, but eventually rented the room again. I asked them why they never told me. The husband just looked at the floor. Then the wife whispered, "Because it had been quiet for years." I moved out that same day. A week later, the wife called me. She was crying. She said after I left, they heard knocking from the basement again. But this time it wasn't under the bed. It was coming from inside the walls, and it was using my voice. Some places feel empty. Others feel like they are waiting. This next story is called The Gas Station on Route 9. This happened when I was driving through northern Idaho late one October night. I was on my way back from visiting a friend, and I made the mistake of taking a back road because my GPS said it would save 20 minutes. It didn't. The road was dark, winding, and surrounded by trees. No houses, no streetlights, no other cars. Just rain, headlights, and the sound of my tires on wet pavement. Around 1:30 in the morning, my gas light came on. I was already nervous, but that made it worse. I checked my phone. no service. Then, about 10 minutes later, I saw a gas station. It was small and old, with 2 pumps out front and a flickering sign that said, "Open." I pulled in and felt instant relief. There was 1 car parked near the side of the building, an old brown station wagon. Inside the store, I could see fluorescent lights and a man standing behind the counter. I got out, swiped my card at the pump, and started filling up. While I waited, I looked through the store window. The man behind the counter was staring directly at me. Not casually, not like an employee waiting for a customer. He was frozen, eyes locked on me. I gave a small, awkward wave. He didn't move. I finished pumping gas and walked inside to buy a coffee. A little bell rang above the door. The man behind the counter was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and a red flannel shirt. He looked exhausted. I said, "Long night?" He didn't answer. I grabbed a coffee and brought it to the counter. He looked past me, out the window toward my car. Then he said quietly, "You shouldn't have stopped here." I laughed a little because I thought he was messing with me. "What do you mean?" He said, "You need to leave before the woman comes in." I looked around. "What woman?" He leaned closer and whispered, "The one in your back seat." I turned so fast I almost dropped the coffee. My car was parked under the gas station lights. The windows were fogged from the rain, but I didn't see anyone inside. I turned back to him. "There's nobody in my car." He looked terrified. "Yes, there is." Then the bell above the door rang. I looked toward the entrance. No one was there. The door hadn't opened. The man behind the counter whispered, "She's inside." I backed away. He grabbed my wrist, hard. "Don't look at aisle 3. Of course I looked. At the end of aisle 3, between the chips and canned food, stood a woman. She was soaking wet. Long black hair covered most of her face. She was facing the shelves, standing completely still. Then she turned her head toward me. Not her body, just her head. The man behind the counter shouted, "Run!" I ran. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and peeled out of the lot. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. The woman was standing outside the gas station now, right under the flickering open sign. Then my phone regained service. My GPS rerouted. But when I looked back at the map, there was no gas station behind me. No building, no road marker, nothing. The next day, I searched online and found an old article. A gas station on that same route had burned down in 1989. The owner died inside. A woman had been seen entering the building minutes before the fire started. No one ever found out who she was, but the article mentioned something that made me sick. The owner's body was found behind the counter. His hand was burned around a customer's receipt. On the back of it, he had written one sentence: "Don't let her leave with you." The next story comes from someone who thought they were alone in their apartment. Then they checked the camera. This one is called The Baby Monitor. My sister had her first baby 2 years ago. She and her husband lived in a small apartment, and the baby's room was right across the hall from theirs. Like most new parents, they were exhausted. They barely slept, and they relied on a baby monitor every night. The monitor had video and audio, and my sister kept it on her nightstand. One night, around 3 in the morning, she woke up to the sound of someone humming. At first, she thought it was the baby monitor picking up music from another apartment. But then she realized the humming was coming from the baby's room. She looked at the screen. Her baby was asleep in the crib. The room was dark except for a tiny nightlight. Everything looked normal. Then she heard the humming again. Soft, slow, like a lullaby. She woke her husband and asked if he heard it. He listened. Then his face changed. He got up and went across the hall. My sister watched him on the monitor as he stepped into the nursery. He looked around, checked the closet, checked behind the chair. Nothing. The humming stopped. He came back and said, maybe it was interference. They tried to go back to sleep. 10 minutes later, the humming started again. This time, my sister grabbed the monitor and stared at the screen. The baby was still asleep, but the rocking chair in the corner was moving. Slowly, back and forth, back and forth. No one was sitting in it. She screamed. Her husband ran into the nursery again. The chair stopped moving the second he turned on the light. After that, they moved the baby's crib into their room for the night. The next morning, my sister checked the monitor footage. It saved motion clips automatically. There were 6 clips from that night. In the first clip, the baby was sleeping. Nothing happened. In the second, the chair moved slightly. In the third, it rocked more. In the fourth clip, the chair stopped. And in the 5th clip, someone was sitting in it. Not clearly, just a dark shape. A woman. Her head was tilted down toward the crib. My sister said the worst part wasn't seeing her. It was the 6th clip. The chair was empty again. The baby was still asleep. Then, right before the clip ended, a whisper came through the audio. A woman's voice said, "He looks like mine." They moved out 2 weeks later. Before they left, their landlord told them something he probably should have mentioned earlier. The previous tenant had been an older woman who lived there alone. She had a daughter who passed away as a baby. And after that, neighbors often complained about hearing lullabies at night, even years after the woman herself had died. My sister doesn't use baby monitors anymore. Even now, when her son cries at night, she goes into his room herself, because she says she would rather see what's there than hear it singing first. Some roads look the same every night, until one night they don't. This story is called the detour sign. My uncle used to drive trucks for a living. He wasn't the kind of guy who believed in ghosts, and he hated scary stories. But there was one story he told only once. He was driving through rural Pennsylvania in the late 90s, hauling furniture overnight. It was raining hard, and he was already behind schedule. Around 2 in the morning, he came up on a road closure sign. Orange cones blocked the road. A large sign read, "Detour." There were no workers around, no flashing trucks, just cones and the sign. He followed the detour onto a narrow road through the woods. After about 10 minutes, he realized something felt wrong. The road was too quiet. No houses, no mailboxes, no intersections, just trees pressing in on both sides. Then he saw another sign. "Detour," pointing deeper into the woods. He followed it. 5 minutes later, another sign. "Detour." He started getting angry. He said out loud, "Where the hell are you taking me?" That's when the radio turned to static. Then a voice came through. Not a broadcast, not music, a man's voice. It said, "Keep going." My uncle slammed the radio off. He slowed down, looking for a place to turn around, but the road was too narrow. Then his headlights caught something ahead, a woman standing in the middle of the road. She was wearing a raincoat, yellow, bright yellow. He hit the brakes. The truck skidded slightly. The woman didn't move. He honked. Nothing. He leaned out the window and shouted, "Are you okay?" She slowly raised one hand and pointed to the right. There was another detour sign. My uncle said that was when he knew something was very wrong, because there had been no road there a second earlier, just trees. Now there was a dirt path, and the sign pointed into it. He locked his doors and put the truck in reverse. The woman dropped her hand. Then she ran at him, not normal running, fast, too fast. He reversed down the road, barely staying straight, until he finally found a driveway and turned around. When he got back to the main road, the cones were gone. The road closure sign was gone. Everything was open. He pulled into a gas station a few miles later, shaking. The cashier saw his face and asked what happened. My uncle said there was a detour back there. The cashier went quiet. Then he asked, "Yellow raincoat?" My uncle nodded. The cashier said, "You didn't follow her, did you?" Apparently, years earlier, a school bus had crashed on one of the old back roads during a storm. The driver had followed a detour sign, but there was never supposed to be a detour there. The bus was found days later in the woods, empty, no kids, no driver, just one yellow raincoat folded neatly on the front seat. My uncle never drove that route again. He also never trusted detour signs after midnight, and whenever he saw roadwork in the rain, he said the same thing: "Take the long way." This next story is short, but it stuck with me, because sometimes the scariest thing isn't what happens, it's what almost happens. This one is called The Spare Key. A woman I used to work with lived alone in a small house at the end of a quiet street. She was careful. Locked doors, cameras, motion lights, the kind of person who checked everything twice. One night she got home late from work. It was cold, windy, and raining hard. She parked in the driveway, grabbed her bag, and walked to the front door. Before she could unlock it, she noticed something. Her spare key was sitting on the porch mat, not under it, on top of it. The spare key was supposed to be hidden in a fake rock near the garden. She stared at it for a few seconds. Then she looked at the fake rock. It was open, empty. Her first thought was that maybe she had done it and forgotten, but she knew she hadn't. She picked up the key, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The house was dark. She called out, "Hello?" No answer. She turned on the hallway light. Nothing looked disturbed. But she felt wrong, like the house was holding its breath. She backed out slowly and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the house. At first, they didn't find anyone. Then one officer checked the attic. There was a man hiding behind a stack of boxes. He had gloves, a knife, and her fake rock in his backpack. The police said he had probably been waiting for her to come inside and lock the door behind her. But the worst part came later. When they checked her security cameras, they saw him arrive 2 hours before she got home. He found the spare key, unlocked the door, went inside. Then, about 5 minutes later, he came back out and placed the key on top of the mat. One officer asked him why he did that. He smiled and said, "I wanted her to know she let me in." She moved out within a week, but even after she moved, she said she couldn't shake one thought. If he hadn't wanted to scare her first, she never would have known. And the final story for tonight is called The Room That Wasn't There. This happened to a friend of mine while she was staying at an old hotel in Montana. It was one of those historic hotels with creaky floors, antique furniture, and long hallways that all looked the same. She checked in late after a wedding and was given room 312. She said the hallway on the third floor smelled like old carpet and rainwater. The lights buzzed overhead. Her room was normal enough. Small bed, old dresser, bathroom with a clawfoot tub. She was exhausted, so she changed, brushed her teeth, and got into bed. Around 1 in the morning, she woke up to someone knocking. 3 soft knocks. She thought it was someone at her door. She got up, looked through the peephole, and saw no one. Then she heard the knocking again. This time, it came from inside the room. She turned around. Nothing. Then she noticed a door, on the far wall. A door she swore had not been there earlier. It was narrow, painted white, with an old brass knob. She stared at it, trying to understand how she missed it. Maybe it was a closet, but she had already checked the closet when she arrived. And that closet was beside the bathroom. This door was on a wall that should have been solid. Then the knocking came again. From behind it, she whispered, "Hello?" A voice answered. It was faint. A woman. "Please let me out." My friend backed away. The voice said again, "Please, it's dark in here." She called the front desk from the room phone. A tired man answered. She said, "There's someone locked in a room connected to mine." The man paused, then said, "Do not open that door." She felt cold. "What?" He repeated, slower this time. "Do not open that door." Then the line went dead. The knocking grew louder. The woman behind the door started crying. "Please, please, I can hear you." My friend grabbed her bag and ran out of the room. She went downstairs to the front desk, but no one was there. The lobby was empty. She left the hotel and slept in her car until morning. When she went back inside after sunrise, a different employee was at the desk. My friend explained what happened and demanded a refund. The employee looked confused. She said, "There is no room 312. My friend laughed because she thought the woman was joking. She showed her the keycard sleeve. It said 312. The employee checked the computer. Nothing. Then she took my friend upstairs. The third-floor hallway ended at room 310. There was no 312. No door. No room. Just a wall. My friend pointed down the hallway and said, "It was right there." The employee didn't answer, but her face went pale. Later, my friend searched the hotel's history. In the 1940s, a woman had disappeared while staying there. She had been in room 312. According to the article, staff searched everywhere, but they never found her. The strangest part was that years later, during renovations, workers discovered old blueprints. The hotel once had a room 312, but it had been sealed off behind a wall after a fire. No one could explain why. My friend still has the keycard sleeve. She keeps it in a box in her closet. And every once in a while she says she hears 3 soft knocks. Not at her door, not from the walls, but from inside the box. And those were 7 terrifying true horror stories to fall asleep to. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, please leave a like and subscribe to Spooky Sleepy Stories for more rain-filled horror stories, eerie legends, and chilling tales to help you drift off into the dark. Now close your eyes, listen to the rain, and try not to think too much about the things that might still be awake. Good night.